Beneath 2 miles of Antarctic ice, something pulses with warmth where no warmth should exist. In this frozen realm at the bottom of our world, where temperatures plunge to 70 degrees below 0 Celsius and winds scream across endless white expanses, there are places where the very laws of physics seem to bend, places where compasses spin like confused dancers, where aircraft engines fail without explanation, and where the ice itself whispers secrets that predate human memory. Before we continue this journey, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extraordinary for you. Consider, for a moment, the profound mystery of time itself. 13,000 years ago, a mere heartbeat, in geological terms, this frozen continent held an entirely different position on our spinning planet. Where today we see only endless ice stretching to every horizon, there once existed temperate lands, flowing rivers, and perhaps civilizations. The Earth remembers everything, you see. Every footprint, every structure, every trace of those who came before us becomes preserved in the ice, like insects trapped in amber, waiting patiently for the right moment to reveal their secrets. The first whispers of this impossible truth emerged not from modern science, but from an ancient map. Picture, if you will, a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis, working by candlelight in the year 1513. He is copying from sources that trace their lineage back to the Great Library of Alexandria, to the very collection that Alexander the Great himself assembled. The map he creates shows something that should be impossible: the coastline of Antarctica as it appeared before the ice, complete with mountain ranges and river valleys. For 445 years, scholars dismissed this map as fantasy. How could anyone in 1513 know the true shape of a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered until 1820? How could they map coastlines buried beneath miles of ice? Then, in 1958, something extraordinary happened. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed what the ancient map had shown. Those mountain ranges existed exactly where the map said they would be, hidden beneath the ice sheet. The ice, you see, is not merely frozen water. It is a library, a vast repository of Earth's memories stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Each layer tells a story of volcanic eruptions, meteor strikes, and climate changes that reshaped our world. But some layers tell stranger stories of metallic particles that predate human metallurgy, of isotope ratios that suggest artificial nuclear processes, of organic compounds that seem designed rather than evolved. In 1938, the frozen continent attracted visitors whose intentions remain shrouded in mystery. The German Antarctic expedition arrived with specially modified Dornier, flying boats, their hulls reinforced for the harsh conditions, their crews trained for secrecy. Captain Alfred Richer led this mission, officially chartered for scientific research, but the evidence suggests something far more profound was occurring. Imagine the scene. Aircraft soaring over landscapes no human had ever witnessed, cameras clicking rapidly as they documented an area spanning 600,000 square kilometers. In just 3 weeks, an impossibly vast territory covered in an impossibly short time. Their 14,000 aerial photographs revealed patterns that defied explanation: geometric formations in the ice, perfectly circular structures spanning 30 kilometers across, and most disturbing of all, regions where their navigation instruments behaved as if the very laws of magnetism had been rewritten. What drives men to venture into such hostile territory? What compels them to risk everything for answers to questions they dare not speak aloud? The pilots reported areas where their compasses spun wildly, pointing not toward magnetic north but toward something else. Their aircraft engines would mysteriously fail, only to restart moments later as if awakening from a dream. And in their cargo holds, they carried back samples that would haunt researchers for decades to come. Among these samples were traces of processed uranium, refined, concentrated, impossible. This was decades before any nation on Earth had officially mastered the technology to extract and purify this element. Yet here it was, embedded in ice cores that spoke of ages long past, suggesting technologies that history insists did not exist. The continent began to reveal its true nature through these early encounters. Antarctica is not simply a frozen wasteland at the bottom of our world. It is a keeper of secrets, a guardian of knowledge that challenges everything we think we know about our planet's history. The ice preserves not just the climate records of ancient Earth, but evidence of activities that predate our understanding of human capability. Modern satellite thermal imaging has revealed heat signatures that pulse like a mechanical heartbeat beneath the ice. These patterns maintain constant temperatures of 18 degrees Celsius at depths where the pressure should crush any artificial structure, where no natural process could generate such warmth. The formations follow geometric patterns too precise to be natural, too regular to be coincidental. Consider the mathematical precision required to create such structures. Tunnels that maintain exact 45-degree angles across vast distances, cavities arranged in perfect grid patterns, as if following an architectural blueprint designed by minds that understood principles we are only beginning to glimpse. The very existence of these formations suggests planning, intelligence, purpose. In the depths of Vostok Station, where Russian and American scientists collaborate on ice core drilling projects, something unprecedented occurred in 1999. At a depth of 3,769 meters deeper than 10 Empire State Buildings stacked atop one another, their drill encountered a cavity containing liquid water at 20 degrees Celsius. At such depths, under pressures 350 times greater than at sea level, water should be ice. Yet here it flowed, warm and impossible. For 14 frames, their drill camera captured images before mysteriously failing. Those frames showed walls so smooth they appeared manufactured, not carved by natural forces. The precision suggested technologies that could shape matter at the molecular level, creating surfaces that reflected light like mirrors, even in the crushing darkness of the deep ice. The biological samples recovered from these depths tell perhaps the most remarkable story of all. Microorganisms, unlike anything in Earth's fossil record, with DNA sequences that incorporate elements unknown to terrestrial evolution. These are not merely ancient bacteria preserved in ice, they are life forms that suggest alternative paths of development, possibilities that challenge our understanding of how life itself can organize and persist. But perhaps the most profound mystery lies not in what has been discovered, but in humanity's response to these discoveries. Every nation on Earth, despite their differences, despite their conflicts, has agreed to keep military forces away from Antarctica. The Antarctic Treaty, signed at the height of the Cold War, saw sworn enemies cooperate to protect this frozen continent from exploitation. Why would adversaries suddenly find common ground about one location on Earth? What did they discover that transcended their differences? The ice remembers everything, every footstep, every structure, every secret. And now, as our planet warms and the great ice sheets begin their ancient retreat, those memories are beginning to surface. Climate change is accomplishing what 70 years of human secrecy sought to prevent. The guardians of these frozen secrets face a race against time as the natural processes that preserved these mysteries for millennia begin to accelerate. Estimates suggest that within 30 years, natural forces will reveal what human discretion has hidden. The question is no longer whether these secrets exist beneath the ice, but whether humanity is prepared for what their exposure might mean. Technologies that could rewrite our understanding of physics, evidence of civilizations that predate accepted history, and perhaps most profound of all, the possibility that we have never been alone on this planet. In the quiet moments between Antarctic storms, when the wind falls silent and the ice stretches endlessly in every direction, you can almost hear the whispers of these ancient secrets. The continent waits, patient as only geological time can be patient, holding its mysteries close, while the cosmic world above slowly warms. But ice, for all its apparent permanence, is merely frozen time. And time, as we shall discover, has a way of revealing everything eventually. The story that follows will take us deep beneath the ice, into corridors that shouldn't exist, toward encounters that challenge the very foundations of what we believe possible. We will witness the exodus of vessels through frozen seas, follow expeditions that returned with more questions than answers, and explore technologies that seem borrowed from dreams of the future. Tomorrow, we venture into the frozen waters themselves, where submarines navigate impossible routes and carry cargo that defies explanation. The ice guards its secrets jealously, but every secret, given time, finds its way to the surface. April 1945. The world trembles on the edge of a new era as the greatest conflict in human history draws to its conclusion. Yet in the frozen waters of the South Atlantic, something impossible is occurring. German U-boats are navigating through ice-choked seas that should crush their steel hulls like eggshells, following routes that exist only in the fevered imagination of those who understand the true geography hidden beneath Antarctica's frozen surface. Picture, if you will, the scene at Mar del Plata, Argentina. The harbor sleeps under a canopy of stars when the impossible becomes reality. U-530 surfaces in waters where no submarine should be able to navigate, her hull scarred by ice but intact, her crew hollow-eyed from a journey that defies every law of physics and seamanship. 66 days at sea, a voyage that should have exhausted her fuel reserves 3 weeks earlier. Yet here she emerges like a ghost ship from the realm of the impossible. Hours later, Unanswered 77 follows, her conning tower breaking the surface with the deliberate precision of a creature that has navigated these waters many times before. The harbour authorities, accustomed to the mysteries of wartime, nevertheless find themselves face to face with something that challenges their understanding of what submarines can accomplish. Consider the mathematics of impossibility. These vessels, designed for the relatively shallow waters of the Atlantic theatre, have somehow traversed routes that should exist only in theory. Their fuel consumption logs, when later examined by intelligence services, show expenditures that correspond not to the direct journey from European ports, but to something far more complex, a voyage that included extended periods of underwater navigation through regions where the seafloor should be solid ice. But it is not merely the journey that defies explanation. It is what these submarines carry in their sealed compartments, protected by specially designed containers that maintain internal temperatures of precisely 21 degrees Celsius. Documents that speak of coordinates placed beneath 2,000 meters of glacial ice. Maps that show passages through the ice pack marked with symbols that predate known Germanic writing systems. And most mysterious of all, cargo manifests that list materials which should not exist in 1945. Admiral Karl Dönitz, the architect of Germany's submarine warfare, speaks in riddles during his post-war interrogations. An impregnable fortress, he calls it a paradise-like oasis in the eternal ice. His words carry the weight of someone who has seen beyond the veil of ordinary reality, who has witnessed places that exist in defiance of conventional geography. The intercepted communications tell their own story. Radio transmissions that reference Base 211 using coordinates that place it not on any known landmass, but beneath kilometers of solid ice. These messages follow protocols unknown to standard military communication, using frequencies that seem designed to penetrate not just the electromagnetic spectrum, but the very ice itself. When American cryptographers finally decode these transmissions, they discover something that chills them more than the Antarctic winds. The messages speak of thermal corridors through the ice pack, naturally occurring or artificially maintained channels where submarines can navigate in liquid water beneath what appears to be solid glacial ice. The precision of these routes suggests mapping surveys conducted over decades, perhaps centuries. The submarine's navigation logs reveal another layer of impossibility, course corrections for magnetic anomalies that create deviations of 45 degrees from true magnetic north. These are not random variations, they follow patterns that suggest artificial magnetic fields strong enough to overwhelm Earth's natural magnetism, fields that create navigational corridors through regions where compasses should point toward the magnetic South Pole, but instead indicate directions that lead elsewhere. Imagine the courage or desperation required to follow such routes. Submarine commanders, trained in the precise science of underwater navigation, suddenly finding their instruments pointing toward destinations that exist on no official chart. Yet they follow these impossible bearings with the confidence of those who have made this journey before, who trust in navigation systems that operate according to principles unknown to conventional physics. The cargo manifests read like inventories from a future age. Mercury by the ton, far more than any known industrial process of the era required. Precision instruments described with technical specifications that won't appear in manufacturing catalogues for another decade. crystalline components that conduct electricity at efficiencies that shouldn't be achievable with 1940s metallurgy. Most haunting are the containers marked with symbols that archaeological examination later reveals to be variations of runic script, but runic script that incorporates mathematical concepts unknown to ancient Germanic peoples. These symbols appear to describe not just the contents of the containers, but precise handling instructions for materials that require environmental conditions found nowhere on Earth's surface. The crew members themselves present another puzzle. Interrogated separately by intelligence services, they tell remarkably consistent stories of a journey through ice caverns lit by an unknown source, of submarine bases carved from solid rock at depths where the pressure should collapse any artificial structure. They speak of encountering other vessels, not just German U-boats, but craft of designs they cannot adequately describe, moving through the water with propulsion systems that generate no detectable wake. Consider the implications of what these testimonies suggest. If accurate, they point toward infrastructure projects of staggering scope, the excavation and maintenance of submarine pens beneath kilometers of Antarctic ice, connected by a network of underwater passages that extend across vast distances. The engineering required for such construction would challenge even modern capabilities, requiring technologies that could manipulate matter at scales we are only beginning to understand. The timeline of these journeys reveals another mystery. According to their logs, some U-boats completed round trips between European ports and Antarctic destinations in timeframes that exceed the known range and endurance of World War II submarines. Yet fuel consumption records, cross-referenced with known supply depot locations, confirm that these vessels could not have refueled at any conventional facility during their voyages. This suggests either revolutionary advances in submarine propulsion technology or the existence of fueling stations in locations that official records insist are uninhabitable ice sheets. The implications of either possibility reshape our understanding of technological development during the war years, pointing toward research, programs that achieved breakthroughs decades ahead of their time. The sealed documents transported by these submarines contain references to research programs with code names that appear nowhere in captured German scientific records. Project Unanswered SS, Operation Tabula Rasa, and most mysteriously, Die Glock, projects that seem to exist in parallel to the documented German war effort, drawing resources and personnel from the highest levels of the scientific establishment while maintaining complete secrecy from the conventional military hierarchy. Intelligence analysts notice patterns in these documents that suggest coordination between multiple research facilities, not just in Germany, but in remote locations whose coordinates correspond to regions of Antarctica that remained unmapped until decades after the war. The level of detail in these geographical references implies survey work conducted with precision instruments, possibly over extended periods of time. The biological samples transported by these submarines present perhaps the most profound mystery. Preserved in specially designed containment systems, these specimens include microorganisms that exhibit characteristics unknown to terrestrial biology. Analysis reveals cellular structures that operate according to principles that challenge fundamental assumptions about how life organizes itself at the molecular level. Some samples contain organic compounds that seem designed rather than evolved molecules, with symmetries and properties that suggest artificial synthesis, using techniques that wouldn't be developed until the advent of nanotechnology. The preservation methods themselves indicate understanding of biological systems at levels of detail that exceed the scientific knowledge available in 1945. As intelligence services piece together the puzzle of these submarine journeys, a picture emerges of an operation that transcends conventional military objectives. The resources invested, the risks undertaken, and the technologies deployed suggest goals that extend far beyond the immediate concerns of wartime strategy. They point toward objectives that measure success not in years or decades, but in centuries. The waters through which these submarines navigated continue to guard their secrets. Modern oceanographic surveys of the Southern Ocean reveal thermal anomalies that suggest underwater heat sources of artificial origin. Sonar mapping identifies structures on the sea floor that exhibit geometric properties inconsistent with natural geological formation. and satellite monitoring detects occasional disturbances in ice formation patterns that suggest movement beneath the frozen surface. The exodus through frozen seas represents more than a remarkable feat of navigation. It demonstrates the existence of infrastructure and technology that shouldn't have been possible in 1945. The implications ripple forward through time, raising questions about the true scope of human achievement and the possibility that our official histories omit chapters of extraordinary significance. Tomorrow, we follow the American response to these impossible journeys as the largest military expedition ever mounted ventures into Antarctic waters to confront mysteries that challenge the very foundations of what we believe possible. The frozen seas that allowed passage for German submarines would soon witness encounters that transcend the boundaries between the known and the impossible. 1946. The world exhales after the longest breath it has ever held, believing that the greatest conflict in human history has finally ended. Yet in the classified briefing rooms of the Pentagon, Admiral Richard Byrd receives orders that will lead him into an encounter with forces that transcend conventional warfare. Operation High Jump, officially described as a training exercise and mapping mission, assembles the largest military expedition ever to venture into Antarctic waters. 47 ships stretch across the horizon like a steel constellation. 13 aircraft carrier-based planes circle overhead in precise formation. 4,700 men, each sworn to secrecy before departure, man vessels equipped with the most advanced technology that 1946 can provide. This is not exploration, this is preparation for war against an enemy whose capabilities remain unknown, but whose existence has become undeniable. The official narrative speaks of mapping coastlines and training personnel for cold weather operations. But the classified orders tell a different story. Deep within the sealed compartments of Byrd's flagship rest documents that reference Base 211, coordinates that correspond to the impossible submarine journeys of the previous year, the mission parameters include provisions for armed reconnaissance and neutralization of hostile installations, language that assumes the existence of targets that officially do not exist. Consider the unprecedented scale of this undertaking. Never before has a military expedition of such magnitude ventured into polar waters. The logistical complexity alone staggers the imagination. Fuel depots established across thousands of kilometers of hostile ocean, supply chains maintained across distances that challenge the range of available aircraft, weather monitoring systems deployed in regions where meteorological conditions can change from navigable to lethal within minutes. Admiral Byrd himself presents a study in contradictions. A veteran polar explorer whose previous expeditions established him as one of the most experienced Antarctic navigators alive, yet his private journals reveal growing unease as the expedition approaches its destination. His entries speak of atmospheric disturbances detected by instruments, of compass readings that deviate from predicted magnetic declination patterns, of unusual aircraft observed at extreme distances. The first signs of impossibility emerge as the expedition enters Antarctic waters. Ship-based radar operators report contacts that move at speeds exceeding 1,000 km/h velocities that challenge the performance capabilities of any known aircraft. These contacts appear suddenly on radar screens, maintain impossible flight patterns, then vanish without trace or explanation. The destroyer Murdoch, serving as an advance scout for the main fleet, records sonar contacts that defy every principle of underwater navigation, objects moving at speeds of 200 knots, 4 times faster than any submarine in any nation's fleet could achieve. These contacts follow trajectories that suggest propulsion systems operating according to principles unknown to conventional marine engineering. But it is the aircraft encounters that transform a military expedition into something approaching a retreat from forces beyond comprehension. Pilots report flying discs, emerging from the water at speeds that should tear apart any known material, accelerating to velocities that would generate G-forces fatal to human occupants. These craft maneuver with precision that suggests control systems responsive to thought rather than mechanical input. The lost aircraft present the most haunting evidence of forces beyond conventional understanding. 3 planes vanish in perfect weather conditions, their final radio transmissions describing enemy aircraft of extraordinary maneuverability. Search and rescue operations find no wreckage, no debris, no trace that these aircraft and their crews ever existed. They simply fade from radar and radio contact as if absorbed by the polar atmosphere itself. Lieutenant Commander Richard Cruzen, flying reconnaissance over regions marked in classified charts as Zone of Interest, transmits descriptions that challenge his training in aircraft identification. Objects moving in formation at estimated speeds of 800 knots. His radio crackles through atmospheric interference, performing 90-degree turns without deceleration. Propulsion method unknown. Request immediate backup. The backup never arrives in time to witness these encounters. By the time additional aircraft reach the coordinates provided by reconnaissance pilots, the skies show only the endless blue of Antarctic atmosphere and the white expanse of ice below. Yet the camera equipment aboard these aircraft sometimes captures images that resist explanation, blurred shapes that suggest solid objects moving at velocities that blur photographic emulsion. Admiral Byrd's private diary entries, classified for decades after the expedition's return, describe encounters that transcend military confrontation and enter the realm of the impossible. His entry for February 19, 1947, speaks of entering a valley where instruments record external temperatures of 23 degrees Celsius, impossible at Antarctic latitudes, yet confirmed by multiple independent measurements. Within this temperate zone, Byrd describes witnessing a city that defies architectural convention, buildings that seem to grow from the landscape itself, surfaces that reflect light in spectrums that create rainbow effects without prismatic refraction. Most remarkably, he encounters beings who speak perfect English with slight Germanic accents, individuals whose presence in this remote location raises questions that challenge fundamental assumptions about human settlement patterns. These beings, according to Byrd's carefully documented account, demonstrate technologies that appear indistinguishable from what earlier eras might have called magic: transportation without visible propulsion systems, communication without electromagnetic devices, manipulation of matter at molecular levels that allows construction without conventional tools or materials. The conversation that follows, as recorded in Byrd's journal, carries implications that extend far beyond first contact scenarios. These beings express knowledge of surface world events with detail that suggests monitoring capabilities spanning decades or centuries. They speak of surface civilization's development with the perspective of observers who have watched human progress from a vantage point outside conventional historical frameworks. Most disturbing is their message regarding humanity's future. They warn of technologies that surface civilization is developing without understanding their ultimate consequences. Weapons that could fundamentally alter the planet's capacity to support life, industrial processes that could trigger changes in Earth's climate systems beyond human ability to control or reverse. The expedition's abrupt termination tells its own story. Operations planned for 8 months conclude after 8 weeks, with fleet movements that suggest retreat rather than mission completion. The official reports cite unexpected weather conditions and equipment failures, but the speed of withdrawal indicates encounters with forces that exceeded the expedition's capacity to engage or understand. Upon return to American ports, expedition members face unprecedented security protocols. 3 months of quarantine in isolated facilities, during which they undergo extensive debriefing sessions. Each member signs security oaths, with penalties of 20 years imprisonment for disclosure of classified information, sentences more severe than those applied to Manhattan Project personnel. The psychological evaluations conducted during quarantine reveal patterns that disturb military psychiatrists. Multiple personnel report identical dreams of crystalline cities and impossible technologies. Others describe persistent sensations of being observed, of presences that exist at the periphery of perception. Medical examinations reveal no physical abnormalities, yet many expedition members request transfer to duty stations, as far from polar regions as possible. The equipment returned from the expedition tells its own story. Instruments designed to function in extreme cold show damage patterns inconsistent with environmental exposure. Electronic devices display component failures that suggest exposure to electromagnetic fields far exceeding Earth's natural magnetic environment. Camera equipment contains unexposed frames that show image distortions, as if the act of photographing certain phenomena caused temporary disruption of photographic chemistry. Most mysteriously, navigation instruments retain memory traces of magnetic readings that correspond to no known geological features. Compass assemblies require complete recalibration, their internal components apparently magnetized by exposure to fields that operated according to principles beyond conventional physics. The classified reports filed after Operation Highjump disappear into intelligence archives, where they remain sealed for decades. The official narrative emphasizes successful mapping operations and valuable cold weather training for military personnel. But the true legacy of the expedition lies in the questions it raises about the nature of reality itself. What forces could neutralize the most advanced military expedition ever assembled? What technologies could create environments that exist in defiance of basic physics? And perhaps, most profoundly, what intelligences could maintain such capabilities while remaining hidden from a world that believes itself alone in the universe? The frozen continent continues to guard its secrets, but Operation Highjump demonstrates that some secrets actively guard themselves. The encounter transcends military engagement and enters territories where the boundaries between possible and impossible dissolve like ice beneath an unseen sun. Tomorrow, we delve deeper beneath the ice itself, where modern drilling projects encounter cavities that shouldn't exist and recover evidence that challenges our understanding of life itself. The surface encounters of Operation Highjump represent only the beginning of revelations that stretch deep into the frozen heart of our planet's most mysterious continent. In the heart of Antarctica, where the ice reaches depths that dwarf the height of mountains, modern science encounters mysteries that challenge the very foundations of what we believe possible. Here, beneath miles of accumulated snow and ice that have fallen continuously for hundreds of thousands of years, satellite thermal imaging reveals patterns that pulse with the regularity of a mechanical heartbeat. These are not random heat signatures scattered across the frozen landscape. They follow geometric arrangements too precise to be natural, too regular to be coincidental. From orbital vantage points that peer through electromagnetic spectra invisible to human eyes, these thermal patterns maintain constant temperatures of 18 degrees Celsius, at depths where crushing, pressure, and eternal cold should make warmth impossible. Consider the physics of this impossibility. At depths of 2,300 meters beneath the ice surface, the pressure reaches 300 times that of sea level, enough to compress steel, to reduce human tissue to liquid, to make the very concept of structural integrity meaningless. Yet these thermal signatures suggest the existence of spaces, cavities, perhaps even breathable environments where none should be able to exist. The discovery at Vostok Station in 1999 marks a turning point in our understanding of what lies beneath Antarctic ice. Russian and American scientists, working together in the spirit of international cooperation that the frozen continent seems to inspire, drill deeper into the ice than any previous expedition has attempted. Their goal is scientific: to extract ice cores that preserve atmospheric conditions from hundreds of thousands of years ago, to read Earth's climate. History in the layers of frozen time. At 3,769 meters, a depth greater than 10, Empire State Buildings stacked atop one another, their drill encounters something unprecedented. Not more ice, not the rock floor of the continent, but a cavity containing liquid water at 20 degrees Celsius, water that flows freely at depths where it should be compressed into exotic forms of ice unknown to surface conditions. Imagine the moment of discovery. Scientists monitoring drill telemetry suddenly observe temperature readings that contradict every prediction, pressure measurements that suggest their instruments have encountered empty space rather than solid matter. The drill camera, designed to document ice core extraction, instead transmits images of something that challenges the imagination: perfectly smooth walls that appear manufactured rather than formed by natural processes. For 14 frames, the camera captures images before mysteriously failing. Those 14 frames show surfaces so precise they reflect light like mirrors, corridors that extend beyond the camera's illumination range, and most remarkably, what appear to be artificial structures maintained at depths where no human construction should be possible. The failure of the camera equipment itself tells part of the story. Analysis reveals damage patterns consistent with exposure to electromagnetic fields, far exceeding those found in natural environments. Components designed to function in extreme conditions show signs of overload, as if attempting to record phenomena that operate outside the electromagnetic spectrum for which they were designed. The water samples extracted from this impossible lake present their own mysteries. Chemical analysis reveals isotope ratios that suggest artificial nuclear processes, not the natural radioactive decay found in geological formations, but the precisely controlled reactions that characterize advanced nuclear technology. Yet, these isotope signatures appear in ice layers that predate human nuclear development by thousands of years. More disturbing are the biological samples recovered from the liquid water. Microorganisms unlike anything in Earth's fossil record, with DNA sequences that incorporate elements unknown to terrestrial evolution. These are not simply ancient bacteria preserved in ice, they represent alternative evolutionary paths that suggest development in environments fundamentally different from any found on Earth's surface. The cellular structures of these organisms operate according to principles that challenge basic assumptions about how life organizes itself. They demonstrate metabolism that functions without oxygen, energy production that requires no external chemical inputs, and reproduction cycles that seem to bypass the genetic mutations that drive conventional evolution. They appear designed, rather than evolved, as if created by intelligences that understood biological systems at levels we are only beginning to approach. Seismic surveys of the region reveal vast, hollow spaces, arranged in patterns that suggest deliberate construction. These cavities connect through what appear to be tunnels, maintaining precise 45-degree angles across distances that span hundreds of kilometers. The acoustic properties of these spaces suggest they are filled not with ice or rock, but with atmospheres that allow sound transmission at velocities consistent with breathable gases. Ground-penetrating radar identifies structures that challenge every principle of engineering and geology. Formations that appear to be massive doors, 50 meters wide, positioned at depths where the pressure should make any articulated mechanism impossible. The radar signatures suggest these structures are composed of materials with properties unlike any known terrestrial metals or ceramics. Most remarkably, these structures appear to respond to the radar scanning itself. Multiple survey pass reveal slight variations in position and configuration, as if the act of observation triggers responses in systems that remain functional after millennia of burial beneath the ice. The implications suggest technologies that operate independently of human maintenance, self-repairing systems that function according to principles beyond current understanding. The Norwegian research team of 2003 discovers evidence that transcends archaeological significance and enters realms that challenge the boundaries between science and impossibility. In an ice cave, revealed by unusual thermal melting patterns, they encounter machinery that appears to grow and repair itself, surfaces that respond to thought rather than physical manipulation, and most disturbing of all, technologies that seem to interface directly with human consciousness. Their expedition ends abruptly when all 7 team members simultaneously develop symptoms resembling severe radiation exposure, cellular damage, disrupted nervous system function, and most mysteriously, shared memories of experiences they cannot have had. Medical examination reveals no presence of radioactive materials, suggesting exposure to energies that operate outside the conventional electromagnetic spectrum. The shared memory experiences reported by the Norwegian team describe encounters with intelligences that exist in the borderland between individual consciousness and collective awareness. These beings, if they can be called beings, communicate through direct transfer of information that bypasses language and speaks directly to understanding itself. Their knowledge encompasses not just the hidden history of Earth, but awareness of planetary cycles that span millions of years. According to these transmitted memories, the technologies buried beneath Antarctic ice represent preservation systems designed to maintain essential knowledge through planetary cycles that periodically eliminate surface civilizations. The ice serves not just as protection from cosmic influences, but as a natural preservation medium that maintains technological systems across geological timescales. The electromagnetic readings recorded throughout these deep ice encounters tell their own story. Magnetic field measurements spike to 10,000 nanoteslas in regions where Earth's natural magnetic field should measure 40,000, a reversal that creates localized gravitational anomalies. These readings suggest the presence of technologies that manipulate fundamental forces with precision that approaches theoretical perfection. Russian scientist Dr. Mikhail Voronov documents witnessing metallic spheres that hover motionlessly above the underground lakes before accelerating vertically at speeds that would generate forces exceeding 100 g. These objects move without visible propulsion systems, following trajectories that suggest control over inertia itself. Their movements create atmospheric disturbances that generate sounds at precisely 440 Hz, the exact frequency that resonates with human DNA. The metallic fragments recovered from ice cores reveal alloy compositions that incorporate elements not found on Earth's periodic table. Spectroscopic analysis identifies atomic structures with properties that allow superconductivity at temperatures up to 90 degrees Celsius, performance characteristics that exceed the theoretical limits of known materials science. These alloys demonstrate properties that seem designed for specific functions: electrical conductivity that operates without resistance, thermal management that maintains precise temperatures regardless of environmental conditions, and most remarkably, molecular structures that repair themselves when damaged. They represent engineering at atomic scales that suggests mastery of matter manipulation approaching the theoretical maximum of physical possibility. The acoustic monitoring stations, positioned throughout Antarctica, record mechanical sounds that originate from deep beneath the ice, rhythmic pulses, harmonic sequences, and complex patterns that suggest communication or operational protocols. These sounds follow frequencies and timing that create resonance effects in biological tissue, particularly in the neural structures that govern consciousness and memory formation. The deepest mystery lies not in what these technologies accomplish, but in their apparent purpose. Analysis of electromagnetic signatures and thermal patterns suggests systems designed not for conquest or expansion, but for preservation and protection. They appear to be maintaining environmental conditions suitable for long-term storage of information, technology, and perhaps even biological samples across timescales that span ice ages. As global climate change accelerates the melting of Antarctic ice sheets, these buried systems face exposure to surface conditions for the first time in millennia. The rate of ice loss exceeds worst-case projections, suggesting that within decades, natural forces will accomplish what human exploration has only glimpsed: the revelation of technologies and intelligences that have remained hidden since before recorded history began. The ice remembers everything, preserving not just climate records but evidence of achievements that transcend conventional understanding of technological development. Tomorrow, we explore the technologies themselves, systems that seem to operate according to principles that rewrite the fundamental laws of physics, creating possibilities that challenge everything we thought we knew about the nature of reality itself. In the deepest chambers beneath Antarctic ice, where pressure and cold should make complex machinery impossible, technologies operate that transcend our understanding of what physics allows. These are not artifacts of some lost civilization working within familiar principles. They represent engineering that appears to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself, creating effects that challenge the very foundations of scientific knowledge. The electromagnetic readings tell a story that rewrites textbooks. In regions where Earth's magnetic field should measure 40,000 nanoteslas, instruments record spikes to 10,000 nanoteslas, a complete reversal that creates localized areas where gravity itself behaves differently. Objects fall upward, water flows against the pull of Earth's mass. The very concept of up and down loses meaning in zones where magnetic fields operate according to principles that exist beyond conventional physics. Consider what this implies. Magnetism and gravity, forces we understand as fundamental constants, become variable within these zones. The technologies responsible for these effects operate at levels of precision that suggest complete mastery of electromagnetic manipulation, not merely the generation of powerful magnetic fields, but the creation of field geometries that interact with space-time itself. Russian scientist Dr. Mikhail Voronov stands witness to impossibilities that challenge his decades of training in theoretical physics. Above the hidden lakes beneath Vostok Station, he observes metallic spheres that hover motionlessly, defying gravity without any visible means of support. These objects, perfectly spherical and approximately 3 meters in diameter, maintain their positions with stability that suggests active compensation for atmospheric disturbances. The acceleration patterns these spheres demonstrate transcend anything achievable by conventional propulsion. From complete motionlessness, they accelerate vertically at speeds that generate forces exceeding 100 g accelerations that would pulverize any material constructed from known elements, that would reduce human occupants to liquid. Yet the spheres maintain structural integrity throughout maneuvers that should be physically impossible. Their movement creates atmospheric disturbances that generate sounds at precisely 440 Hz, the exact frequency that creates resonance in human DNA. This is not coincidence. The precision suggests technologies designed with intimate knowledge of biological systems, systems that can manipulate matter at molecular levels with accuracy that approaches theoretical perfection. The metallic fragments recovered from ice cores present evidence of materials science that exceeds current technological capabilities by centuries. Spectroscopic analysis reveals alloy compositions that incorporate elements not found on Earth's periodic table atoms with nuclear structures that suggest artificial synthesis using processes beyond current particle physics. Understanding. These materials demonstrate properties that seem designed for specific functions. Electrical conductivity without resistance at temperatures up to 90 degrees Celsius, superconductivity that operates under conditions where conventional superconductors would fail completely. Thermal management that maintains precise temperatures regardless of environmental conditions, as if the materials themselves generate exactly the amount of energy required to maintain optimal operating parameters. Most remarkably, these alloys exhibit self-repair capabilities that operate at molecular levels. Damage to the crystalline structure triggers reorganization processes that restore original properties without external intervention. The materials appear to contain embedded information that guides reconstruction, as if each atom carries blueprints for the entire structure. The Norwegian research team's discovery of machinery that appears organic represents perhaps the most profound challenge to our understanding of the distinction between technology and biology. In ice caves revealed by unusual thermal patterns, they encounter surfaces that respond to thought rather than physical manipulation, control systems that interface directly with human consciousness without any apparent connection mechanisms. The machinery they discover defies classification within conventional categories. Surfaces that feel warm to the touch despite surrounding temperatures well below freezing. Structures that emit light without any identifiable power source. Most disturbing of all, systems that seem to anticipate user intentions, responding to mental commands before they are consciously formulated. When team members attempt to interact with these systems, the boundary between observer and observed dissolves. The machinery appears to scan their minds, downloading information about surface world, technological development, cultural evolution, and individual memories with completeness that suggests access to neural processes below the threshold of conscious awareness. The experience proves overwhelming. All 7 team members simultaneously develop symptoms resembling severe radiation exposure, cellular damage that occurs without any detectable presence of radioactive materials. Medical examination reveals disruption of nervous system function consistent with exposure to energies that operate outside the conventional electromagnetic spectrum. Most disturbing are the shared memories that plague team members after their return to surface facilities. They report identical dreams of crystalline cities where beings of extraordinary intelligence manipulate matter through direct mental interface with technological systems. These shared experiences suggest that contact with the buried machinery creates permanent alterations in consciousness, changes that persist long after physical exposure ends. The acoustic monitoring systems, positioned throughout Antarctica, record mechanical sounds that originate from depths of several kilometers beneath the ice. These are not random noises, they follow complex patterns that suggest communication protocols or operational sequences. Rhythmic pulses, harmonic progressions, and frequency modulations that create standing wave patterns in the ice itself. Analysis reveals that these acoustic signals operate at frequencies precisely calculated to maximize penetration through ice and rock. The waveforms generate resonance effects that allow sound transmission across continental distances with minimal energy loss. This suggests communication networks that span the entire Antarctic continent, connecting installations separated by thousands of kilometers through acoustic channels that operate continuously. The biological effects of these acoustic patterns prove particularly unsettling. Prolonged exposure to the recorded sounds creates alterations in brainwave patterns that correspond to states of heightened awareness and enhanced memory formation. Personnel working at monitoring stations report vivid dreams and unusual mental clarity that persists for weeks after their tours of duty end. The thermal management systems operating beneath the ice demonstrate energy generation capabilities that transcend known technological limits. Satellite thermal imaging reveals heat sources that maintain constant temperatures of 18 degrees Celsius at depths where ambient conditions approach -50 degrees. The energy requirements for such thermal management would exceed the output of major power plants, yet no conventional energy sources are detectable. Analysis suggests these systems operate through direct conversion of matter to energy at efficiencies approaching theoretical maximums. They appear to manipulate atomic structure at fundamental levels, extracting usable energy from sources that conventional physics considers inert. The precision of thermal control implies real-time monitoring and adjustment systems that respond to environmental changes with speeds that suggest quantum-level computation. The electromagnetic field generators discovered through deep ice scanning demonstrate capabilities that rewrite fundamental understanding of field physics. These systems create magnetic fields with geometries that exist in more than 3 spatial dimensions. Field configurations that interact with space-time curvature to produce gravitational effects indistinguishable from those created by PAS, massive celestial bodies. The power requirements for such field generation should be astronomical, yet the systems operate continuously without any detectable energy input. They appear to tap into what theoretical physicists call zero-point energy, the quantum fluctuations that exist even in supposedly empty space. This represents practical application of physics concepts that remain purely theoretical in surface world science. Independent researchers using commercial satellite technology track supply flights delivering equipment to remote Antarctic installations. The cargo manifests, when available through Freedom of Information requests, reveal equipment specifications that correspond to no known industrial applications. Industrial-scale air purification systems designed for underground installations. Electromagnetic field generators rated for 10 Tesla output. Construction materials specified for pressure resistance found only in deep ocean environments. The acceleration of disclosure follows patterns that suggest careful orchestration. Each revealed truth makes subsequent revelations inevitable, as if the process follows predetermined protocols designed to gradually acclimate human consciousness to realities that would prove overwhelming if revealed simultaneously. Climate change serves as an uncontrollable variable in this process. As global temperatures rise and Antarctic ice sheets melt at rates exceeding all projections, the natural forces that have preserved these secrets for millennia begin to fail. Thermal imaging reveals an increasing number of installations approaching exposure to surface conditions, suggesting that the timeline for complete revelation operates according to geological rather than human scales. The technologies buried beneath Antarctic ice represent achievements that challenge every assumption about the progression of scientific development. They suggest engineering capabilities that manipulate matter and energy at levels that approach theoretical maximums, creating effects that transcend the boundaries between technology and phenomena that earlier eras would have considered supernatural. Tomorrow, we witness the inevitable confrontation between secrecy and natural forces, as climate change accomplishes what decades of human discretion sought to prevent. The acceleration of ice loss brings us toward a moment when the greatest secrets in human history will stand revealed beneath the Antarctic sun, challenging everything we believe about our planet's past and humanity's place in the cosmic order. The ice, for all its apparent permanence, proves fragile when confronted by forces larger than human secrecy. Climate change, that vast, Inexorable alteration of planetary systems accomplishes what 70 years of military classification and international cooperation sought to prevent. As global temperatures rise beyond all historical precedent, the great ice sheets of Antarctica begin their ancient retreat, exposing secrets that were meant to remain hidden until the end of time itself. The revelation begins, not with dramatic military expeditions or classified research programs, but with the patient eye of commercial satellites monitoring Earth's changing climate. In 2012, routine thermal imaging captures something unprecedented: a perfectly rectangular opening, 90 meters by 60 meters, revealed by unusual ice melt patterns that follow geometric rather than natural forms. Consider the precision of this exposure. Ice melt typically follows irregular patterns determined by variations in ice density, underlying topography, and atmospheric conditions. Yet here appears an opening with angles too precise to be natural, dimensions too regular to be coincidental. The thermal signature suggests that something beneath the ice is generating heat at levels sufficient to create controlled melting from depths of hundreds of meters. Within 6 hours of the satellite imagery reaching climate monitoring stations, the area becomes classified as a no-fly zone. Official justification cites environmental protection measures, but the speed of response suggests preparation for exactly this type of discovery. Military aircraft establish patrol patterns that maintain continuous surveillance of the site, while specialized equipment arrives via cargo flights that follow flight plans unavailable to civilian air traffic control. The acceleration of disclosure follows patterns that suggest inevitability rather than accident. Each exposure creates thermal dynamics that make subsequent revelations more likely, as if the process feeds on itself, gaining momentum with each structure that emerges from its ancient concealment beneath the ice. Whistleblower testimony emerges from Eric Hecker, a defense contractor who spent a year at Raytheon's South Pole facility. His revelations shatter decades of carefully maintained silence, describing technologies and discoveries that transform Antarctica from a frozen wasteland into the most strategically significant location on Earth. Hecker describes directed energy weapons, capable of boring through 2 kilometers of ice in seconds, not gradually melting through thermal application, but instantaneously vaporizing frozen water with energy densities that exceed anything achievable through conventional power generation. These weapons operate with precision that allows surgical excavation of underground installations without affecting surrounding ice structures. The underground transport systems he witnesses defy conventional engineering understanding. Magnetic levitation railways that connect facilities across 1,000-kilometer distances, operating in tunnels that maintain atmospheric pressure and temperature despite their depth beneath the ice. Travel times between installations suggest velocities that exceed commercial jet aircraft, achieved through propulsion systems that generate no detectable acoustic signature. Most remarkably, Hecker describes archaeological discoveries that predate accepted human civilization by 50,000 years. Artifacts that demonstrate technological sophistication exceeding current capabilities, arranged in museum-like displays within climate-controlled chambers deep beneath the ice. These discoveries suggest continuous human presence in Antarctica across timescales that span multiple ice ages. Independent researchers, working with commercially available satellite technology, track supply flights that deliver equipment serving no apparent scientific purpose. Flight patterns reveal regularly scheduled cargo deliveries to coordinates that correspond to regions officially designated as uninhabited ice sheet. The frequency and scale of these operations suggest logistical support for substantial underground installations. The cargo manifests, when obtainable through Freedom of Information requests, reveal equipment specifications that challenge civilian understanding of Antarctic research requirements. Industrial-scale air purification systems, rated for underground installation in populations measured in thousands. Electromagnetic field generators capable of producing 10 Tesla magnetic fields, strength levels required only for the most advanced particle physics research. Construction materials designed to withstand pressures found exclusively in deep ocean environments. The pattern of equipment delivery suggests infrastructure development that spans decades, possibly centuries. Some facilities receive components that require years to install and calibrate, indicating long-term projects that operate according to timelines measured in generations rather than fiscal years. The coordination required for such extended operations implies organizational structures that transcend conventional governmental and military hierarchies. Commercial satellite monitoring reveals thermal signatures that correspond to massive power generation facilities operating beneath the ice. Heat output measurements suggest energy production at scales comparable to major urban centers, yet the power sources remain undetectable through conventional electromagnetic monitoring. The thermal efficiency implies energy generation technologies that operate beyond known physical limitations. The ice loss acceleration creates a feedback loop that makes revelation increasingly inevitable. Each exposed structure alters local thermal dynamics, creating microclimate conditions that accelerate melting in surrounding areas. Computer models suggest that this process, once initiated, becomes self-sustaining, following exponential curves that lead to complete exposure of underground installations within timescales, measured in decades rather than centuries. Intelligence analysts tracking the disclosure patterns identify orchestration that suggests careful management of information release. Classified documents emerge through channels that suggest intentional leaking rather than security failures. Whistleblower testimonies follow timing that coordinates with satellite discoveries, creating information cascades that build public awareness while maintaining plausible deniability for official sources. The media response follows predictable patterns that suggest preparation for exactly this type of revelation. Major news outlets receive briefings that enable rapid, coordinated coverage of Antarctic discoveries. Scientific institutions publish research papers that provide theoretical frameworks for understanding technologies that shouldn't exist. The coordination implies advanced planning that anticipates public reaction to discoveries of extraordinary significance. Scientific expeditions to newly exposed sites encounter evidence that challenges fundamental assumptions about technological development. Electronic devices that function despite apparent age measured in millennia. Power sources that generate electricity through principles that transcend conventional physics understanding. Most disturbing of all, biological samples that suggest genetic engineering techniques that exceed current capabilities by centuries. The biological discoveries prove particularly unsettling to researchers trained in conventional evolutionary theory. Microorganisms with DNA sequences that incorporate synthetic elements, suggesting artificial modification using techniques that wouldn't be developed until the advent of nanotechnology. These organisms demonstrate capabilities that transcend natural evolutionary development, metabolism that functions without oxygen, reproduction that bypasses genetic mutation, and most remarkably, behaviors that suggest collective intelligence operating at molecular levels. Analysis of atmospheric samples from exposed chambers reveals gas compositions that maintain breathability despite being sealed for thousands of years. Oxygen levels that suggest active regeneration through biological or technological processes. Trace elements that correspond to industrial processes requiring temperatures and pressures achievable only through advanced manufacturing techniques. The archaeological implications prove even more profound than the technological discoveries. Carbon dating of organic materials recovered from exposed installations yields ages that predate accepted human civilization timelines by tens of thousands of years. These dates correspond to geological periods when Antarctica maintained temperate climates, suggesting continuous human presence across multiple ice age cycles. Artifact analysis reveals manufacturing techniques that demonstrate mastery of materials science at atomic levels. Crystalline structures grown rather than assembled, incorporating molecular designs that optimize electrical, thermal, and structural properties simultaneously. These materials appear designed for specific functions within technological systems, suggesting integration between tools and users that transcends conventional understanding of human-machine interfaces. The acceleration of revelations follows patterns that suggest approach toward a critical threshold. Each discovery makes subsequent exposures more likely, creating cascading effects that may lead to complete revelation of Antarctica's hidden history within the current generation. Climate models indicate that ice loss rates now exceed natural variation by factors that make reversal impossible within human timescales. Intelligence sources suggest that preparation for full disclosure operates at highest levels of government and military hierarchies. Contingency plans for managing public reaction to discoveries that challenge fundamental assumptions about human history, technological development, and humanity's place in the cosmic order. These preparations imply awareness that revelation has become inevitable, requiring management rather than prevention. The unraveling of silence transforms from gradual seepage to approaching flood. Each year brings new exposures, new discoveries, new evidence that the official history of human civilization omits chapters of extraordinary significance. The ice sheets that preserved these secrets for millennia cannot withstand the thermal forces unleashed by global climate change, creating a race between revelation and humanity's readiness to confront truths that transcend every assumption about our planet's past. Tomorrow, we explore the final questions that emerge as the ice surrenders its ancient guardianship mysteries that transcend individual discoveries and point toward implications that challenge our understanding of consciousness, reality, and humanity's destiny among the processes, stars. The silence is ending, and with it, an age of innocence about our true place in the cosmic story that continues to unfold beneath the Antarctic sky. In the quiet moments between Antarctic storms, when the wind falls silent and the ice stretches endlessly toward horizons that curve beyond sight, the greatest mysteries emerge not from what we have discovered, but from the patterns of human response to those discoveries. Why does every nation on Earth, despite their differences, despite their conflicts, despite their competing interests, cooperate to maintain silence about the greatest archaeological and technological discoveries in human history? The Antarctic Treaty stands as perhaps the most remarkable diplomatic achievement in human history, yet its true significance lies not in what it accomplished, but in what it prevented from being discovered. Signed in 1959 at the height of the Cold War, this agreement sees sworn enemies suddenly find common ground about one strategic location that could provide ultimate advantage to whichever nation controls it. Consider the improbability of this cooperation. The United States and Soviet Union, locked in ideological struggle that threatens global nuclear war, agree to prohibit military activities in Antarctica. Nations that compete for every resource, every strategic advantage, every technological edge, voluntarily exclude themselves from a continent that contains evidence of technologies beyond current human achievement. The economic implications alone should have prevented such cooperation. Commercial aircraft burn millions in extra fuel yearly, following flight paths that divert thousands of kilometers to avoid specific Antarctic coordinates, shipping routes that add weeks to transit times, rather than cross designated exclusion zones, industrial operations that forfeit resource extraction opportunities in favor of maintaining secrets whose value transcends immediate economic considerations. Pilots report experiences that reveal the extent of these protective measures. Commercial flights receive course corrections that mandate altitude changes, heading modifications, and fuel consumption that challenges aircraft operational limits. Air traffic controllers cite atmospheric conditions that require diversions lasting hours, yet weather monitoring shows clear skies throughout the affected regions. The coordination required for such systematic flight path management implies real-time monitoring systems that track every aircraft approaching Antarctic airspace, radar networks that provide coverage density exceeding military defense requirements for any known strategic installation, communication protocols that allow instantaneous coordination between air traffic control centers across multiple nations. Scientists who venture too close to restricted zones report experiences that follow patterns too consistent to be coincidental. Equipment failures that occur simultaneously across multiple independent systems. Navigation instruments that provide readings inconsistent with known magnetic declination patterns. Radio communications that experience interference despite clear atmospheric conditions and optimal equipment function. Most disturbing are the reports of missing time periods where expedition members lose consciousness and awaken hours later with no memory of intervening events. Medical examination reveals no evidence of chemical intervention or physical trauma, yet the temporal gaps occur with precision that suggests external influence rather than natural causes. The biological effects prove even more unsettling. Research teams report shared dreams that feature identical imagery, crystalline cities, impossible technologies, encounters with intelligences that exist beyond conventional human categories. These shared experiences persist for months after Antarctic exposure, suggesting permanent alterations in consciousness that transcend individual psychology. The ice cores themselves tell stories that challenge fundamental assumptions about Earth's history. Atmospheric samples preserved in ancient ice reveal trace elements that correspond to industrial processes requiring advanced metallurgy. Isotope ratios that suggest nuclear reactions controlled with precision exceeding current technological capabilities. Organic compounds that appear designed rather than evolved, incorporating molecular structures that optimize properties beyond natural selection pressures. Most remarkably, these anomalous readings appear in ice layers, dating to periods when conventional history insists human civilization possessed only stone tools and fire. The timeline inconsistencies suggest either fundamental errors in dating methodologies or the existence of technological civilizations that predate accepted chronologies by tens of thousands of years. The metallic particles embedded throughout Antarctic ice cores present perhaps the most profound challenge to conventional understanding of technological development. Spectroscopic analysis reveals alloy compositions that incorporate elements not found on Earth's periodic table atoms, with nuclear structures that suggest artificial synthesis using particle acceleration techniques beyond current physics understanding. These materials demonstrate properties that transcend known metallurgical limitations. Superconductivity at temperatures approaching room temperature. Structural strength that exceeds theoretical maximums for conventional atomic bonding. Most remarkably, self-organization capabilities that allow complex structures to assemble spontaneously from component elements, as if the materials themselves contain embedded assembly instructions. The global response to these discoveries follows patterns that suggest preparation spanning generations. Educational curricula that condition public acceptance of extraterrestrial intelligence. Entertainment media that acclimates audiences to concepts of advanced civilizations and impossible technologies. Scientific institutions that publish theoretical frameworks capable of incorporating discoveries that transcend conventional physics understanding. Intelligence sources suggest that preparation for full disclosure operates at levels that transcend individual governments or military organizations. International coordination that requires communication protocols and decision-making hierarchies unknown to conventional diplomatic channels. The scope of cooperation implies organizational structures that operate independently of publicly acknowledged governmental systems. As global temperatures continue rising at rates that exceed all historical precedent, the natural forces preserving Antarctic secrets approach critical failure points. Computer models indicate that ice loss acceleration has achieved momentum that makes reversal impossible within human timescales. The thermal dynamics suggest that complete exposure of buried installations will occur within the current generation. The approaching revelation raises questions that transcend archaeological or technological significance. If these discoveries prove accurate, they challenge fundamental assumptions about human consciousness, technological development, and our species' relationship to intelligence that exists beyond terrestrial categories. The implications extend beyond history into territories that require complete reconceptualization of human identity and cosmic significance. Consider the possibility that human civilization represents not the pinnacle of Earth's technological development, but a recurring cycle in planetary history that spans geological timescales. The evidence suggests that advanced civilizations have risen and fallen multiple times, leaving traces preserved in ice that accumulates during periods of climatic stability. The technologies discovered beneath Antarctic ice appear designed not for conquest or expansion, but for preservation across timescales that span ice age cycles. They suggest planning that operates according to geological rather than human temporal frameworks, anticipating climatic changes that occur every 10 to 20,000 years. Most profoundly, the discoveries point toward intelligence that transcends individual consciousness and operates through collective awareness spanning multiple generations. The coordination required for projects lasting thousands of years implies organizational capabilities that exist beyond conventional human social structures. The biological samples recovered from deep ice installations include genetic material that suggests artificial modification, using techniques that incorporate quantum-level manipulation of molecular structures. These modifications appear designed to enhance human capabilities in directions that optimize survival during planetary environmental transitions. The question becomes not whether these discoveries represent evidence of non-human intelligence, but whether they represent evidence of human potential that transcends current limitations. The technologies may represent achievements possible for human consciousness that operates according to principles we have yet to rediscover. As the ice releases its ancient guardianship, we approach a threshold that may represent the most significant moment in human history. The revelation of capabilities that transcend current understanding may trigger awakening of human potential that has remained dormant since the last ice age cycle ended 12,000 years ago. The greatest mystery remains not what lies beneath Antarctic ice, but what these discoveries reveal about human consciousness itself. The technologies appear designed to interface directly with awareness that operates beyond individual limitations, suggesting that the ultimate mystery lies not in alien intelligence, but in human capabilities that we have forgotten how to access. The ice remembers everything, every achievement, every failure, every cycle of discovery and loss that characterizes planetary civilization development. As that memory thaws, we face questions that challenge every assumption about consciousness, reality, and our species' destiny among the stars. The silence that has preserved these secrets for thousands of years approaches its end. What emerges from beneath the ice may transform not just our understanding of history, but our comprehension of what it means to be human in a universe where consciousness and technology transcend the boundaries we currently accept as absolute. In the end, the questions frozen in time point toward answers that exist not just beneath Antarctic ice, but within the deepest layers of human potential itself. The journey toward those answers begins with the courage to accept that everything we believe about our past may be merely the surface of truths that lie frozen in the deepest chambers of Earth's memory. The ice is melting, the secrets are stirring, and humanity stands at the threshold of rediscovering its true place in the cosmic story that continues to unfold beneath the infinite Antarctic sky.